Hey Rick, thanks for coming on today, man.
Definitely. Great to be here. Love it.
I'm jealous of the view you have behind you looking out at Chicago because I do miss the city myself being out here in Arizona. So I am envious of that view you have behind you.
Well, you got some other stuff in Arizona going on. We got I got a Ferris wheel on my back. We got like at times a green river. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, really happy and lucky to be here.
Yeah, it's a great city, and you're right. There are some nice things out here in Arizona, but I do miss the city myself.
I cannot imagine. I'll probably be on my bike in Arizona every single day.
Bringing yourself back to the Dutch life.
Definitely. I think the highest mountain here is I don't even know Chestnut Mountain, which is like in feet, 400 feet. So you're actually in a better spot, whether it comes to like skiing in the environment, anything else. If I want to ski, I probably have to, I don't even know, like drop myself out of a helicopter and find some kind of a like slope or so to go down. Yeah, I think you're definitely in a good spot there.
I would agree. And speaking of tying your Dutch roots to riding your bike around, like currently you're working with U.S. Soccer, but you spend most of your career and most of your life in Europe. So could you give us a little bit of background of where you came from and how you ended up to where you are at U.S. Soccer?
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to make the story as short as I can. Born and raised in the Netherlands, been a tennis player by heart, ever since I was super young, and got a little bit of a cop there going on. But so yeah, started in multi-sports with handball, field hockey, volleyball, everything around like Olympic sports first. Then had a physical therapy practice at some point, did some personal training, master in physical therapy, master in sports science or human movement science as it was called back in the days, sports psychology. And from there on, in after three Olympics, jumped in at Feyenoord as a in soccer or football as we call it in Europe. Did it for 6 years, and all of a sudden I got a phone call if I wanted to transfer myself to the big north of America. So ever since 2021, I've been here in the capacity of high performance director, which is absolutely amazing. It's a huge country. I think one of the things is high performance directors is getting that feeling that performance is really appreciated. In Europe, it is definitely a fight every single day. And here I really feel that, it's just more adopted as high performance person. And that's what I try to do, like overseeing sporting analytics, sports medicine, sports science, and in research innovation and everything that's part of the whole support team that's behind the technical team and the players, and try to do my utmost best to create a world-class high performance environment. And really exciting times. Crazy summer going on with under 23s finally again back in the Olympics, our women national team in the Olympics, and the men after a good start of the year with the Gold Cup now and the Nations League win going into Copa America. So, yeah, can life be better? I would say.
I can appreciate and understand how stressful and how busy you are, but I'm not quite sure the audience understands the breadth of how much you are managing at U.S. Soccer. So you alluded to Nations League, U20s, you got the Olympics, we got the World Cup coming up next year. Big overview. Could you give some insight as to what you're overseeing? And then in the immediate, let's say, I think it's like the next 3 to 4 years here in the United States, there's a lot of big tournaments that are happening. So could you just give some background as to like part one is what are you managing with every entity that's going on with US soccer? And then also the trajectory of soccer in this country with the major tournaments coming here.
Yeah, so in all honesty, I'm definitely not doing this by myself. I work together with a ton of high performing specialists. We oversee a total of 27 national teams. We have a women's senior team, men's senior national teams, our youth national teams, boys and girls, men and women, however you want to call them. And then we have extended national teams like futsal, cerebral palsy, beach. We have motor. And all of them have World Cups, and all of them either have Olympics or they have like tournaments around CONCACAF or CONMEBOL. And what we try to do is we try to support all those individual, I would say, soccer players, athletes, but also the teams with delivering best practice, high performance support. but also try to educate coaches and help coaches to reach their utmost in understanding of what a high performance environment looks like. So we do education, we deliver practices, we do recovery, we do nutrition, we deliver medical support, we do return to play, we do analytics, so sporting analytics. We do research innovation, try to publish an amount of like 7 to 8 papers a year, making sure that the ecosystem can learn from whatever we do in-house and get better educated. I think I probably, I don't even know what we're doing, to be fair. It's so much. But it's super fun, and we try to live according to 5 pillars that we have. First of all, create a world-class organization. I think we as US Soccer are just mandated to be out there and show what a high performance environment look like, what a high performing team look like. We try to create winning teams, which is extremely important for us, because with winning teams, we show that we actually, can get to the platform of making it very difficult for people to choose between watching football or American football and baseball and basketball, and turn their heads towards like the soccer game. So we want to make sure that we have influence on the ecosystem, that people understand what we're doing and that they're following us and understand how things can be better. So we want to be leaders in that area also. And obviously we need to raise money, which is a very important thing. We want to have full stadiums. And the way we do that is with attractive football, I think, or soccer. I think if you look at our style of play, it's very energetic. It's on the opponent's half. We try to, get the ball from like low on the field all the way up to the goal. Really want to try to make a difference in how football or soccer is perceived in the world. And slowly but firmly, we're getting there. And as an example, this year, our women traveled to Paris together with our under 23 men to show the world how we can play soccer during the Olympics, which is a big tournament for us with a new staff coming up on the women's side. And then also the men who are participating in the Copa America. And I think with big opponents there, we just need to show that we belong in the top of the world. And I think everything to catch the viewer's eye and show how cool soccer actually is, instead of seeing this as like, oh, one goal is not enough in the game, but there's so much going on. And if you look at the way our analytics team is working, I think we're really doing a good job. I trust the team to be outstanding. Even if they would go into another environment, they definitely would be world leaders in what the environment asks and what we deliver. It's now time to get some more prizes in our prize closet. So, or prize, how do you say, prize room? I don't know how you call it in America.
The trophy room?
The trophy room. Yeah, no, trophy room. So yeah, I don't know if that covers your question, but there's just so much going on that I don't even know where to begin and where to start. I think the main thing is try to redefine what high performance means in elite sports and try to influence the environment and show how good we are as Americans to be able to deliver world-class support to our teams and our players. They have to go back to their clubs, spreading the word how cool things are in our environment and how much joy and how pleasant it is. Yeah, I think that's pretty much like what the mission covers.
There's one phrase that I've heard you say numerous times, but also is what you do for a living too. It's this phrase of high performance, and high performance directors of high performance managers. Those are some of the titles that you see predominantly in the soccer space for the better part of the decade. But you're starting to see more sports adopt that type of title and personnel. So I want to dive deep into there, because that is your area of expertise. And before we do that, the phrase you just said is we're trying to redefine high performance. But before we redefine it, could you shed some insight into how you define high performance? Because I think it's a little vague to those that aren't familiar with it in the world of elite sport, and especially in your space of international soccer. So how do you define high performance?
I don't even know if I can. That's what makes it so complicated. But I think we want to provide innovative, sustainable sports performance services based off of best practice research And it's to support coaches, players, other support staff, and everyone to be able to be excellent in their jobs. So in order to do that, we need to have excellent performance first. So we need to be excellent in the delivery of our day-to-day, in having domain knowledge. We have to be resilient. We just have to make sure that we do everything on the highest possible level that we can think of. And I think that is what high performance is, because high performance lives in a bank environment, high performance lives in accountancy, high performance lives in top sport. But we are talking about the elite level. And that's what I'm trying to do, like push everyone towards their elite support level that we can provide.
And then when you're trying to redefine it, right? I imagine redefining means you've had some successes or previously in your career, but also I imagine some challenges or even failures at the same time. When you say redefine, like how are you taking your past experiences and exposures and where you're at now and the trajectory where this country's headed for US soccer? How are you trying to redefine high performance and then set the standard for the rest of the industry?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting one because for me, if you go back 15 years ago, high performance was not existing. It was a physical therapist and a physical coach or strength and conditioning coach. So it was easy to be managed by a head coach or a sporting director or technical director, as it was called at the time. So now the support team is medical, it's sports science, it's analytics, it's psychology, everything that has a certain specific domain knowledge. So redefining this means leadership looks different from, I would say, let's say from now on. And different means that the sporting director does not have the direct domain knowledge to be able to manage those individuals that are support staff, as we would call it. So it goes up to like new leadership that understands what high performance means, that understands what high performing environments look like, that understands how a national training center or a training center needs to look like in order to provide an environmental situations where everyone can thrive at the highest level possible. And that means I think, and I'm going to say, I probably we say in the Netherlands, we kick shins. So I'm probably going to kick shins here. Sensitive topic. I think within now in 5 years, probably the high performance director will jump a little bit of a level to where it becomes a peer of the sporting director. Because in all honesty, if you look at the national team here, 60 to 70% of the staff lives on the high performance team. And that is pretty much like support staff that have direct influence on the player, whether it's in training, like loading schedules, medical in recovery, analytics in advising about strategies, etc., etc. Someone with domain knowledge needs to support that team. Someone needs to understand data. Someone needs to understand how this environment works together. Need to understand how peer groups look like, how analytics ties into medical, how medical ties into sports science. And you see that over the past couple of years, these silos have been created. We have a research innovation group, the director of research innovation. You have the medical group with a director of medical services. You have a sports like strength and conditioning group with a director of strength and conditioning. But these people all lead into one person. So how can that be managed if you don't have domain knowledge? And that is for me the redefining of like the director of high performance. More and more you see that there comes an extra person on top of all those pillars of support that is able to manage those areas and let them work together in a better way. And more it goes up in the charts and hopefully at some point it becomes a peer of the sporting director, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. You did a great job explaining where the different silos that may exist, how the role of the high performance director is to bring those, let's quote unquote, silos together. But I'm going to call it the high performance team, right? It used to just be, like you said, physical therapist, strength coach. In the United States, it used to might be just an athletic trainer, strength coach, and maybe one sport coach, or an athletic trainer for multiple teams, right? But as we've grown as an industry, as there's more investment from players, as there's more investment for clubs, these teams get bigger, 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 to the point now where even your sports medicine staff is maybe a group of 4 to 6 individuals, separate from what sports science is, separate from what right? And there's all these arms to it. So I agree and hear why you're saying the high performance manager, that person that sits above it, having the domain knowledge to have those conversations with each, but bring them all together for a unified vision to get everyone moving in the same direction.
And to tie into that, like if you look at how a sporting organization typically looks like on the business end, let's say we split the business end and the sporting end. So we have on the business end a chief finance officer, chief operations officer, chief executive officer, all these chiefs, and they are pretty much like 30% of the organization, but they are led by this whole C-suite. And then you go to the sporting end, there's only a sporting director, and he oversees typically like all the other staff. So how is that possible? Why isn't there a chief sporting officer and a chief performance officer, for instance? It just makes sense. You have more people at the table who can make decisions based off of like the actual heart of the business, which is sports. So eventually these teams become so big that you need to have someone, I think, in the C-suite or wherever that lives, to be able to make decisions based off of like a multidisciplinary approach, and not just based on finance or based on global sports, but based off all these different individuals that have something to say around this player and around the teams. That will be an evaluation an evolution over the next coming years. I think it's inevitable. It will happen at some point.
I agree, and you're starting to see more of those positions open up or positions created because, like you said, things just keep growing, and you eventually need someone to manage the group of it. I want to go back to a point you said earlier around like environment, right? You said high performance director and responsible for creating the environment. One question I had for you just globally was, you've been successful in the world of high performance, but there's like kind of two parts to this. When it comes to success, that's a big part of the high performance director. It's not only creating the environment, but also what's required of the personnel in the team, like the sub teams, the silos, for lack of a better term, to create the high performance within the team itself. So I really just want to kind of double click on what it takes to create high performance, both from an environment perspective, but a personnel perspective as well.
Yeah. So starting at the environment, so we set up a couple of environmental, I would say almost behaviors that we have. A couple of things which I think define what a high performance environment is. And the first of all, obviously, is a high performance environment has clearly defined priorities. We know where we have influence. We know what have high impact influence or high impact actions are and low impact actions. We just know what to approach first. Clear measures of success. Every time you take a step, you need to understand if this was a step in a good direction. Sorry about that. So it needs to be measured. We need to understand, hey, this is going into the right direction. We're trending into the wrong direction. We need to pivot into making it successful, or we're not going to spend our energy on it. The people who are living there, we accept that everyone can make a decision when they occur. You can't wait for someone to make a decision because it happens now. If there's a game, it happens now. If the head coach needs to discuss with an assistant coach around a certain topic, takes him 10 minutes, you conceive a goal. That's different if you're in maybe in some companies, some situations I can imagine that's the same, but that you can see that they're in the same area of high performing teams. You have to make decisions fast. One big thing is cooperate cross-functionally. You need to be able to take a step back, not only look at like the medical piece of it, but what is the sports science piece to it? Like if it's about a certain protocol, you need to understand all the protocols, because return to play is about loading mechanisms. It's about physiology. It's about recovery, understanding recovery. It's about execution of exercises. So it's a multi functional environment. one big thing for us is determining every action is related to the game. If we make an action and it's not related to the game, it just doesn't make sense. Because if we don't gain anything that helps us in the game, why are we doing this? We're not doing this to, cover up something which is not useful for the game. Clear vision of where you're heading. We all live in an environment here at US Soccer, I would say, where the whole high performance team knows exactly where we're heading. Every individual has a goal, every team has a goal, every department has a goal. That is extremely key. And I know for 100%, if you would ask every individual here, they would come up with the same answer. One big thing for me within high performing environment is a shared leadership responsibility. Like everyone is a leader and everyone is a leader in their way, because it's about accountability. It's making sure that we reach in the right direction. So managing upwards, managing sideways, managing downwards. Everyone has to take leadership, has leadership responsibilities, and everyone feels that responsibility also. Clear defined roles and work responsibilities. Knowing what you need to do, knowing that you need to become better, and knowing what the deliverable is for you so that you can work together. Another big thing, everyone here needs to identify problems and solve problems. If there's a problem, we can't wait until tomorrow. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's not like today I don't feel like, paying this invoice. Let's wait until tomorrow. That's just not happening. It's impossible, and it's just not something that we can live with, because if we don't pay it, tomorrow is a game and we don't have something to deliver. So it needs to be today. If we can get something accelerated, we will accelerate. Stay excited and be creative. That's one of our big ones. Recognizing, hey, I got issues. I'm not excited today. I don't want to go to work. That means you need to raise the topic and someone's going to help you. Typically it's your manager, but it can be anyone. It can be your neighbor at the table here saying like, I just don't know why I'm doing this. Find a purpose, be creative, move forward. There's no walking backwards. It's always like, all right, how can I help you stay excited? And I think that the last one, which is super obvious, but still, is if you are participating in a meeting or in a conversation, you need to be productive. If you just sit there and wait, nothing will happen. So we are mandated, and I expect everyone who is on a call, if you have an idea, you have to share your idea, because it's almost a violation if your thoughts are not being shared, because we might miss out on something very critical in our success moving forward. And there are no strange ideas, there are no strange initiatives. The only thing you can get is an honest answer back. So that's something where I think those 10 points are critical in how our high performance environment looks like. And you can ask anyone here and they will, give you the same sequence of 10 things. And it's definitely not like I brainwash them, because that's not what I'm doing. But it goes in a very relaxed, easygoing way where it just makes sense that this is our direction. And yeah, so that's more like the team. And I know it's like a long answer, but we do have specific individual skills where we scout on also. So we find those people where we think they are, who can work in our environment, because it's definitely not for everyone. And again, it's in great health. Every time I explain this, it feels like we're in some kind of a laboratorium and everything looks like it's clinical and it's very natural, organic, and joyful, and a lot of fun. We make a ton of fun. But in order to work with us in this team, I think we have extreme expert knowledge. We have a couple of people who are so skilled that they're exceptional in their skill set, exceptional communication skills. And that not always happens. So we also educate people on communication and communication skills. One of the big things, being empathical and have good emotional intelligence, because if you don't have it, you're not able to, sometimes have difficult conversations with coaches around advice around players, for instance, or medical. Having, you have the interaction with players who tend to be very sensitive around certain topics. you need to be collaborative. Like without collaboration, we won't reach a goal. Attention to detail, like, and then detail is not like you need to, configure into one particular area all the time, but you need to have the ability to zoom in and out, and make the right, decisions, and choose the right direction. Highly motivated. The people, it's almost like, you're an actual soccer player yourself. You need to be highly motivated. You need fun coming to work. Otherwise, why are you here? We don't want people sit behind a computer, not talking to everyone. So this is a very, exciting environment where people go into tournament, and that's where you get motivated. You just have like, you need to be internally motivated to be able to work here. I think a passion for sports might sound super obvious, but that's the thing. If you don't have a passion for sports, you don't work in sports, I would say. Some kind of a leadership skill or authority. If you do a presentation, people need to see like that's a person who comes from US soccer. Strong personality, stands out of the rest, has a clear idea of where we're heading, shares lead. Like you really see that there's some kind of like an individual leading standing there. And I think the last one would be sort of like a cultural fit. So you might have all of these things and times 10, but you might not be able to fit our environment. So if you don't have that cultural fit thing, and that's also in our hiring process, the last call. So we call it like a cultural fit call, where we put you amongst peers and just have a conversation and just figuring out if you can be part of the team. And we expect us to say, hey, you are part of the team, but we also expect the people who we hire to say, hey, I want to work in this team because it gives me a good feeling. So I think those are pretty much like 2 times 10 things, one from a team perspective and one from the individual perspective, what we're looking at, and how I try to, get as close to the truth of what a high performance environment looks like and what high performing people are. But you're not always right. It's sometimes you just can't, you get someone in and there's just not a fit. Doesn't mean that this person is good at their job, but there has to be this sense of belonging, sense of feeling that you belong to the team. And if it's not there, it's not there. But we try to do the best we can to get the right people in.
Well said. There's plenty of context there to give insight as to how you view high performance, both from the individual and team, but also the environment too. You talked about a lot of things that would make it successful, and you've been at this for quite a while. One thing I'm really keen to ask, and just curious to also understand if you've experienced it or witnessed or just from your peers understood, are there certain things that have led to unsuccessful environments or teams of high performance, or have there been certain failures that have led to unsuccessful environments? Because I think it's easy to talk about what makes a system good. I'm always curious on the opposite end of that. Where do teams fail? Where do environments fail? Or certain challenges that may be difficult to overcome? Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think that's a very complicated question. I would say the things I ran into, or I needed to tackle, maybe that's also like when you see that things trended the wrong way, you also need to have like this feeling that, hey, I need to approach this. Typically, it's like internal communication. It's unclarity around a certain topic, and start super small with I think this is good, and someone else thinks I think this is not good. If we don't solve that in the beginning, then people are starting to talk together. You get back talk. And once you have 3 or 4 people talking, feeling the same way, you're pretty much lost. That's when you start to notice that people are doing things and they're not excited about it. They feel like you need to go into a different direction. So I think that is one. I think unclear expectations, and that lives often outside of your own environment, if that makes sense. But within the high performing environments, I think we do speak the same language, but between high performance and coaches, that we try to figure out how can we talk together. We try to break the language barrier, to say so. So we try to have common language. If you don't have common language, things trend to go, you lose trust in each other, and things go into the wrong direction. I think resistant to change. Typically people in high performing environments, they change things. because they want to improve things. And a lot of coaches, a lot of senior leadership people do not want to change, or they feel like their change is the right change. And sometimes that's an emotional decision that they're either against change or with change. And we are very objective typically. So we are very much like, hey, we've seen this, very rational. This is the outcome. So we need to do this to become successful. But you need to be able to translate the ratio towards the emotion and have the right communication skills to bring that message across. One of my big slides is like how to get the message across. And I have like 10 slides around how like we have strategies to make sure that we can create the emotion behind the rationale. And if you're not able to do that, and you move away from those facts and you adapt and adopt to the emotion, that's where things just, it's unsavable sometimes. A couple of things is like, obviously, like trust. If you say one thing in the press and it's wrong, that's pretty much the end of you in the sense of, can we fix this? How big is it, and it delivers stress. I think like ethical changes sometimes on the medical side, for instance. If you speak to, like as a high performance staff, if you speak to players and you give them tactical advice and you're not a coach and the coach didn't agree with it, those things tend to happen super easily because there is this super unclear line between being a friend and being a high performance supplier. And that's where things tend to go wrong if you become friends with players and there's no professional barrier anymore. I think there's so many things that can make you unsuccessful. And I think those are the main topics or the main issues that you run into. And as a high performance director, you just try to have a sense of, hey, this didn't go right. And you hopefully have the emotional intelligence to jump on this particular product, issue and tackle it right away. And one of our big things is we have to have clear communication and direct communication. And that is pretty much my life savior. Every time something happens, I just explain and call out what it is, whoever it is, whether it's my boss or whether it's one of our peers or someone, who just started or who has been 20 years in our environment. Direct communication is the only thing that will save you when shit hits the fan, because that's the only thing which is the truth, which is reality, and will bring everyone back to what the issue is. And then it's a question, can we solve it, yes or no? And not always solvable, but 9 out of 10 times it's definitely something we can solve. And just making sure. And I think that me as a Dutch person probably goes a little bit easier than a lot of other people, but that definitely helps me.
I would say your Dutch culture definitely lends itself to being direct and calling it out for what it is. No, that's a little bit easier, maybe a little bit easier coming from that part of the world, and maybe a little bit more difficult here. But it's, as you were just explaining all that, and folks that listen to the podcast, we all try and learn and listen. Like the stuff that's fun, it's like the technical, it's the tactical, it's all the science and research and all the cool tech that we get to be exposed to. And then if you have all these great things that are part of your environment, these people are super skilled at their technical skills, the craft, and then you're not the first person, you won't be the last person to come on here and, with the respect of where you've been in your career and come and say, you know what? The most important thing is the direct communication and being able to have those channels. Because you're right, when shit hits the fan, I always say, when shit hits the fan, it comes down to people. Like that's what's going to solve the problem.
100%.
And so part of, when shit hits the fan and you have people, you need communication. And so I just wanted to highlight that because I think I've certainly experienced it. I've struggled with it at times. I've made mistakes with communication with my peers, superiors. It happens, right? It happens, and you just try learning it better for the next one. But it's amazing when, even if you, I think the analogy I'll use, like coming from the NBA, resources are pretty abundant. So you almost always have any technology you need. If you need to hire some more people or hire some more talented people, you can go find them. But almost like similar to how you see some of these quote unquote super teams in the NBA, or you think back to like Real Madrid when they built the Galacticos, right? Like even if you have all the talent and all the resources, sometimes that's not what makes you successful. It's everything else. The I guess you could call it the glue, the things that you may not think about. And in this space of high performance, what I'm hearing you say is the communication, the relationships, the people, and just having a clear vision of where everybody's supposed to be going.
Yeah, because like, money can buy you every technology. Like I have the coolest job in the world. All the people here are playing with VR, AI. We have like crazy recovery modalities. I just went into this amazing town bed where you are brought into like the forest and you're brought into an environment where you just can relax like nothing else. Yeah. But if the communication is not good, all these things don't matter because if you say one thing wrong to a player or a coach, you will feel it for hours, But if you can put someone into like a cryo chamber, which is like 3 minutes, you said 3 minutes, the feeling is questionable whether or not it actually worked. So all those words you're saying, all those impacts you have as being a human, which you cannot buy, that's just the people you hire or the people who are in your environment. They pretty much nail the environment in like, they make it. They are the core of your business. They are the core of your existence. And there's like, if they bring the message, like one example, we had during the World Cup this recovery lab, which was absolutely amazing. And then there was a player who was really skeptical about going into the infrared light beds before a game. And it was like the idea was to activate them with infrared light, and it would feel better prepared going into the game. There was a player, and one of our staff members said, like, oh, listen up. You go in there and you just think about how energized you will be. And you think about like what this will do for you. So figure yourself out as your superpowers. You go into there, you charge yourself as a superpower battery, and you come out of it, you just feel reborn. He went in that thing. He never, so every game, he just didn't want to miss out on that 15 minutes in the infrared bed. And then we did a review on what actually changed in his physiology. Nothing. Nothing changed in his physiology. He was just as oxygenated as before. He had the same HRV as before he went to that thing. Great, baseline heart rate was exactly the same. Body temperature, no difference except for skin temperature then. But somehow he felt better. So it might have been the words of this practitioner, So we spent 30 grand on a machine and maybe the words of getting that guy in there, recharging his superpower battery and getting out of that, which was for free. Maybe that made a difference. I don't know, because that's why we do research. But it's the people who make success. And another example is every time we arrived late at a game or the bus got stuck in traffic or whatever, in my history, it goes back like 24 years of practical experience. Every time we arrived late, we played the best game. So that meant the whole layout of a standardized warm-up. Every bit of nutrition that you could get into your body to be ready was forgotten. But the focus was on because we knew that we were late and we knew that we had to start well and we knew that we had to, struggle ourselves through that game. But it always delivered the best possible game. So you almost want to be late every time because, I wouldn't do so because otherwise I'm going against my standards or my practice. But like the people make the difference. And I really think that is so important around the team. Trust, belief, excitement, and having a clear vision moving forward is more, it's like it's invaluable. It's amazing.
When you talk about a clear vision going forward, I'm really curious what you hope the industry of high performance goes in, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years. Like, what excites you about this area of high performance, where what you've been a part of, what you're currently doing, and what your vision is for US Soccer? Like, what excites you about high performance in the next, let's call it 5 years?
I think we're in a very complicated situation and a very luxury situation. And the complicated thing is, there are about 2 million things out there which are exciting, whether it's blood pools and figuring out what messenger RNA is going to bring you, or microRNA, or all these AI strategies that will, accelerate all your loading data and positioning data, event data combined. If you look at recovery, all these different strategies, whether it's cryo chambers or whether it's floating beds or whether it's rings that give you HRV, it's sleeping strategies, it's the Garden of Eden. There is so much out there. I don't think there's a startup that did not touch on a certain topic yet, because everything's out there. So moving forward, I think figuring out what high impact innovations will be, how to create an environment where you know that every innovation or strategy that you adopt will have a positive influence on players. I think eventually we hope to lay the golden egg and figuring out how we can support this player with not doing too much, because that's where we're trending to. Morning screens, morning questionnaires, daily movement screens, going to the medical team to do your check on your knee or your hip or whatever, getting video feedback, getting training feedback, seeing the app for your tracking your HRV and your sleep. As a player, at some point you need to go crazy. So somehow I think what really excites me is to find that golden solution around what can we have influence on that is not too much, not too little, and how can we influence that environment and that individual to get the best out of the player. Because it's the Wild West, man. It's the Wild West. There's too much out there. And yeah, every time you jump on a call with some kind of a vendor, you think that this is it, but it's just a piece of the puzzle. So we need to go back to, I think we eventually will go back to where we were 10 years ago and reinventing what a baseline high performance support environment is and make it easier again instead of complicated, more easy. So we have to go back in time and figuring out how we can get the stress off these players and make them understand what they do need to do, and not giving them all these strategies and they don't even know anymore. That's what I think the future will be. Back to basics.
It's almost like the pendulum swung too far into complicated in tech, because the technology keeps growing, the affordability keeps growing. And then the reality is a lot of the technology and a lot of these companies are the same. They're just marketed, or the algorithm or software is slightly different. So it's a new product, and it's, yeah, like you said, you get on a call with a vendor, you see someone at a conference, someone cold emails you, it's like, wow, this sounds great. This could be a great strategy. Then, like you said, you start adding everything up, like in the player journey, like the player walks in the locker room, the player walks into the arena, the stadium, and now all of a sudden they spent 2 hours before they even touched the playing surface, the court or the field. I used to always joke and have that perspective of, in the NBA at one point during my career, I had counted, there was potentially 21 people that could have helped an individual player before they even got on the court for team practice. And each one of those 21 people had something unique that they offered. I'm not saying like, oh, it was 4 athletic trainers. No, it was like there was 21 different types of disciplines or modalities or interventions that athlete could have done before they even stepped onto the court. And as you were saying, a similar process, a similar story of some of the players, that there's just so much you could do. It's almost like, okay, we went that far to see when you have everything, what makes sense. But now it's almost weeding out the noise and saying, what's giving us the biggest influence? What's the tech that's giving us the biggest bang for our buck, or the software or intervention? Like I'm with you. I share that same perspective, because even in myself, it's paralysis by analysis. When you start looking at so many different variables, you kind of decide, you know what, I kind of probably just got to pick a few that matter most and lean into those, because those are the ones that probably matter most as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, probably from a perspective of support. Hopefully in the future, the teams that the support teams around the actual playing team will become less, and we'll do more and more research and support on the back end. For instance, our data team is not in camp. They're just doing things here. And if there is some problem, they will solve it for the people in camp. So we have less people, in that environment who players are seeing, because you want to create like this family feeling. Doesn't live with 70 performance staff or 70 support staff. That lives within that 12, 13 people who were there 10 years ago and that are dedicated to supporting the player and who have the trust of these players and know them also. And I think like this wild growth of people coming in who don't have a direct connection to the players, I think we need to bring that down and back to like normalizing that environment again. Because just like everyone says, like time is the new luxury that counts for the players also. It's not for nothing that we do yoga and mindfulness, an hour, 2 hours before moving to a game. Because there's so much influence on these players. They also need to be able to process things. And we need to get that noise down and make it more valuable. More valuable. And making sure that we do the right things with high impact. Yeah, I don't know where that lies yet because I'm struggling with understanding what that is. But hopefully that will be something for the near future. I want to call it my golden egg when I'm 82 years old and I'm still working to find the solution of what that best practice actually is. But yeah, we're slowly but firmly getting there, I would say.
Hopefully before 82, so you can enjoy a little bit of your golden ages there.
Hopefully it tastes good also.
Yeah. One thing that I always love to ask guests, especially those that work in sport and high performance, is we're always about the big wins that come on the field. But I'm really curious on this one for yourself because you're managing a lot and you are trying to move the group forward, but also live in the moment and win the tournament that whichever national team is facing for that period, that summer, that season, right? So those are the things that we're all trying to achieve. As this whole conversation has been about high performance and the group that you have there, how are you helping them find the daily wins, the weekly wins, like the small wins across the entire process to keep having the motivation and confidence to move forward?
I think there's one major thing that's extremely important, and that is the sense of belonging. Every player needs to have the feeling that they belong to the team, and every staff person needs to have the feeling that they belong to the team also. And that keeps them exciting. So if whoever sits here is a sports scientist and figured out, hey, this is something that is going to make a difference. For instance, a strategy or a standard operational procedure around pre-camp preparation. That person will lead that from the under 15s all the way up to the senior national teams. And everyone is, winning something with this small piece of the puzzle. And the good thing here, and I'm super, super, lucky that I'm in this environment because the senior national team adopts what is good in under 15s and vice versa. So every week, the small wins of success that we have, whether it's, hey, let's do, I won't call out any brands, but for instance, we have this saliva test to understand hydration. It didn't start in our national senior teams. It started at like the under 17s, where they're like, hey, this works. And this works very quickly. And then the first team got like, shoot, this will save us 10 minutes of time. The guys and the girls don't have to pee in a little pot and look at their urine color anymore. Now they can just hold this thing 5 seconds on their tongue and boom, a new process is built. And then we know that it takes 2 to 3 hours to actually, rehydrate yourself. And if they learn that the hydration is too low every morning on a match day -1, they also educate themselves on drinking more. And those are the small things. But the person who actually got this device in hand and started with it is also the person who goes into the senior national teams and say, listen up, this is the process. And the process get adopted. It is about giving people the sense of belonging and a little bit celebrating those small wins. And the celebration lies in that it's a big win for the whole team and not only just in their small, tiny environment. There's numerous examples of those, individual wins. People are speaking at summits, which typically wouldn't speak because everyone wants to hear Darcy Norman, who has been in, 2 World Cups and with Bayern Munich got multiple championships. But we also have Stephanie Dominguez, who no one actually heard of, but went into this, influential, like Women in Sports Summit, telling about her experience as a first U.S. soccer woman support staff working in professional men environments. It's a huge thing for her and it keeps her excited. And that's a big thing. And everyone here at US Soccer knows it and it's celebrated and it's those are the big wins, I would say. And it feels like it's small wins, but we in the Netherlands have this saying like small wins for the group is a big win for the individual. So if you recognize that the small wins for the individual, are actually big wins, that's what keeps people excited and part of the bigger puzzle. Yeah. And we're still talking about people. And I realize now that we're in this call, it was like, hey, this needed to go about technology and about all these amazing things. And but I keep coming back towards where the individual is such an important piece of being successful. And I think that's just what I do, I would say.
It's well said. It's the people that they're not going anywhere as much as we have fear of robots or AI taking over everything. I think ultimately, hopefully, maybe there's something going on at other summits or conferences that we're unaware of, but I would tend to agree that we'll continue to be here for a while making these things go around. So I appreciate that perspective. One fun thing I want to ask you before we wrap things up here, is given the experience you've had and where you've been, both Europe and here in the United States, like what's one of your favorite locker room or I'll keep it to locker room. We can keep the names anonymous, or if you got to sub in a John Doe or a Jane, we can do that. Always curious, everyone has some great stories from behind the scenes and we all love to hear those and talk about them. So do you have one that is one of your favorite that comes to mind?
Locker room experiences. Well, I got a few. And I want to be respectful in any case because most of them are not for sharing in the sense of they're, under the belt. I think I like the first it goes back a while, I would say, because that's the one I can definitely know I can share. There was a time where I was in field hockey a long time ago. And in field hockey, it's still the way that if you're new in a team, you're in the middle of you don't have a real spot. So in the middle of the locker room. And in the middle of the locker room, and it's pretty much called the island. So you need to earn your spot on the outside of the ring. So you need to earn your spot. So once you have like 10 caps or 15 caps, the oldest of the group moves away, which is someone who has like 200 caps in field hockey. These people, they play a lot of games. So that's finally when you can move from the island towards, the outside thing. But there is a possibility that you can move back also. This happens. But the fun part is, if you reach that particular stage of going towards to an actual spot, you need to tell something about yourself. And you need to do something that makes you you. And at some point, we had like one player in the middle of that, who was right about going towards the outskirts to get his own spot, telling him about like a story around he living this how do you call it, like this cave with 20 students, because field hockeyers are students. Telling about like stories which happen there around everything that goes, like eating stuff, rats in the kitchen, like mice running around, and then eating. The story was so dirty, you just don't even want to know. And once he moved to the outskirts, like he became this newborn personality. He started living together with his girlfriend, and then he had like real good food and like this whole transformation of this individual. And being part of that transformation in about like 6 months, that was an actual amazing experience for me. And it pretty much why I tell this is like it told the story of how, as an elite sporter, you grow up and you see this in the dynamic of a team. You just see how these individuals grow. And I think field hockey is rugby is I think similar, where you see the hierarchy of someone growing. Eventually he became like a super good player, captain of the team, etc., etc. So very interesting how that goes. I think that is like, the most decent story I can tell around locker room jokes and locker room experiences.
Oh, it's great. I would imagine that's got to be some fun banter when you're on the inside and you got the senior vets on the outside, like 200 plus caps. Look here, we got the rook here. It's only got 5 caps. That's I can
Oh
imagine.
yeah, they have to do everything. They have to do the dishes. They have to do, the serving of the food. They have to sometimes make food, whatever they have to do. It's a tough time as a rookie, man. Also, you have to earn your spot. That's something I nowadays think are definitely different. I think there's more equality. There's more things around. We can't do that anymore. But as long as things are normalized and it's not a bad thing, it makes sense that you also have to understand to earn your spot, because through a hard life come big things, I would say.
It's true that. True that. Well, had a lot more questions for you, and we didn't even get to half the stuff that we had on our list, which I'm not surprised. Just the way we have conversations here. So maybe we'll have to get you back on. We can actually get into some nitty gritty around recovery and tech and some cool stuff that you do at US Soccer, but also your time is very limited with the amount of teams and tournaments going on. So I was just very happy to finally sync up with you and get you on here. And so just thank you for sharing all your insights, your knowledge, your stories. And last thing I just want to leave the audience with is if anyone ever wants to get in touch with you or wants to follow more about any presentations or information you're putting out there with US Soccer, even yourself, is like, what's the best way to learn more from you?
I think LinkedIn. What I really try to do is I try to help everyone in this environment with high performance to become successful, which means sharing knowledge, sharing, where do you need to be, what's the good pathway, how can you get into sports, etc., etc. So I think LinkedIn is definitely. Please don't flood me with like like emails and stuff, because I'm getting a ton of emails every day, and I don't want you to be like on the bottom of the list. But I think LinkedIn makes a lot of sense, and I'll try to get back with everyone on the individual level. And yeah, sorry if it takes me a while to answer, but I really want to like, it's for me one of the biggest things is make sure that young professionals become successful, and people are already have arrived in this environment to become even more successful, or share more knowledge. And like you said, like, you haven't even touched on technology. That's the fun part of the job. So, yeah, whatever questions you have, LinkedIn should go to.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure people know how to find you. So, Rick, thank you for your time today. This was fun.
Definitely was. Thank you so much for your time, actually.